If you're running an ecom brand, you already know this golden truth. Ad platform attribution is broken.
Yeah, you had less competition in your niche, you had less competition in bidding on ads and stuff like that because you have a bidding-based system as well in Google as in Meta, for example, and every other ad platform is working like that.
Meta, Google, TikTok, they all claim to win, but none of them tell the full story.
Of course, it's like a black box. Nobody knows how the Facebook or like the Google algorithms work.
So if you're still relying on platform-reported data or hacked-together solutions, you won't be able to properly scale your business in 2025.
The more data you have, the more data you're posting back. Usually you see a much more stable way in scaling.
And this week's guest shows us how to fix that.
What we are doing is like, we are trying to unify the data.
Fabian, founder of OneTrack, is here to break down how the smartest brands are using attribution tools to scale faster and more profitably.
My software is basically, we're doing an analytics software and a data software.
Join us as we explore what your platform data isn't telling you about your business.
The more information you have of your existing customers, it's easier to find new people.
The real reasons why brands are struggling to scale.
If the product or the offer is not working, you can throw money on it and it will still not work.
And just how OneTrack works and give you an inside edge when media buying.
So we can capture more data, having this certain edge in front of your competitors.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the videos, why not consider subscribing? We drop bi-weekly content that will help you improve your business right here on the channel. So what are the main kind of industries that you work with?
Oh, we have a broad area of industries. Like we have people who are selling cosmetics. We have people selling like tools, electrical tools and stuff like that. We have people who are selling like perfumes. We have people who are selling like gym equipment.
Yep.
We have people who are like doing like fashion. We have people doing like all the weird stuff, like building materials for houses, for example. Like laundromat cleaning taps, for example. We have different array of people working with us.
Okay, and it's mainly kind of ecom and lead gen are the two verticals.
Yeah, we're focusing mainly like on lead generation, on e-commerce.
Okay.
And like in lead generation, it's usually the people who are generating leads, trying to get highly qualified leads, and like how to, like in general, like increase the quality of the leads with us. So that's what I try to do. And we have a lot of e-commerce businesses, of course, who are doing like also like different areas of revenue, starting from like $1 million a year going up to like 100 million a year, who do like all the stuff we just explained.
Okay. And what does your software do?
My software is basically, we're doing an analytics software and a data software. So usually people compare to like other stuff they know already, like Triple Whale or something like that. We see us more like a data collection software. We are collecting data, we are structuring data, we are cleaning data, and then we're playing data back to the ad accounts. For example, like Meta, Google, TikTok and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So we have like basically the full data pool with us and make people able to work with it. So what we basically do is like what Amazon, you remember, they are like the main leader in e-commerce worldwide. And then you have like Shopify, which is like the solution for the mama and papa shops, all for the smaller solutions to get them online and sell online. And you have this monopolistic like character of Amazon. You have this smaller little competitor for the everyday people, like mama and papa shops, everyone who's smaller than Amazon, like Shopify. And what we try to do is like get the data back to people. You know, okay. We want to give them the control. We want to be the Shopify of data for them so that they can basically calculate or analyze their data much easier than they would usually. Mm-hmm. That they have better insights from that side and that they have actionable data actually. You know, mm-hmm. And this is what we are doing.
Okay. I want to break this down because I think this is quite complex for a lot of people that might be listening. Can we start with why is this needed? Why is this a problem? Why can't I just, set up some Facebook ads, run them to a Shopify site and that's it?
I mean, basically you can do that, which is also working in the beginning. And then in the end, it's quite complicated because it's like statistical measures in the background. When you scale ads, you try to target a broader array of people. The more information you have of your existing customers, it's easier to find new people. The more information you have, the more broader you can go and specific. Yeah, you can go broad and say, okay, give me people who are vegans, give me people who are female, give me people in this age range. But if you don't know what the age range is, or if they are vegan or something like this, you have less data. And this is like a statistical effect. You have more like a loss of efficiency. I don't know the English word for it, but it's a loss of efficiency you have basically. And what is happening there is you lose basically because you're getting less efficient with your ads. You're spending more ad spend on ads which are targeting the wrong areas, for example, the wrong target audience, and they're not buying from you. And so you're wasting your money.
Okay.
And to specifically answer the question, like what you said, like why you cannot do that. You can do this in the beginning, because in the beginning you have probably spent like 10K per month, 20K per month for your store, and it's converting and you get sales in. The problem starts usually when you get like over 50, 60K, when you start scaling and your prices explode. So this is what we are helping the people with, to identify the working ads and stuff like that, and giving them better data in their own dashboards and in the ad platforms, so they can scale easier and have a more stable ad price in the end.
Okay. So after a certain kind of level, ad performance starts to degrade, and you need to capture that information that's missing, is kind of what you're saying, and your tool helps do that and then sync up that data transfer between platforms.
Yes, in general. For what you have to do is, like, first of all, you have to catch every data point possible. You know, data points sounds like super crazy, but data points are actually first names, last names, email addresses, telephone numbers, like postal codes, cities and stuff like that, IP addresses. These are data points. When we talk about data, data is always the aggregated value of data points. So this is the first stuff. You have to take what is possible. And with a normal setup, which normal online shops, which they are using, you can basically, like a conversion API or Facebook Pixel or Google Pixel, it depends a little bit on the country, but usually you take up, like in the best case, 14 data points. This is the maximum you can take. So in the end, if you're getting all the 14, which you never get, the average is around like 9 to 10 data points which you collect. You can post back 9 to 10 or the 14, depending how much you collect in the beginning. But there is a lot of data missed, and what you can do is, like, you can just like make that data seeable. You can catch the data, collect it for yourself, and usually you would not be able to see or capture it with the standard methods. And that's what we are doing. We're capturing the data, then we're structuring the data so that we are checking the data. Is it a first name, a last name? What is the gender? Is the email address an email address, a telephone number, and stuff like that? Bring it together in one customer profile. Yeah, and then shoot it back to the ad platforms so that they have basically like a great data source where they can pull from, a high quality data source, which also brings high quality statistical twins of your existing customers. So it's much easier for you to target them.
Okay. What does the ad platform then do with that information that you've pulled?
That's basically a question you have to ask Mark Zuckerberg, I guess. But in general, what they do, like, they're taking the information and they're analyzing it in a certain way. Of course, it's like a black box. Nobody knows how the Facebook or like the Google algorithms work. But in general, what you can say is, like, the more data you have, the more data you're posting back. Usually you see a much more stable way in scaling. You see a much better targeting in the audiences. For example, lookalike audiences start to work again, retargeting start to work again. Yeah, all that stuff, which gets even more important now that we're going like from an ABO based world into a CBO based world, like all in the e-commerce, the Advantage Plus campaigns, which are also going now to lead. You have now Advantage Plus in lead too. You have it Advantage Plus in purchase and stuff like that. And this is basically happening that you need more data, and people ignoring that fact. You know, because usually e-coms, they look on their ROAS, they look on their cost per action in any way, and then they try to optimize and like, yeah, I have to get margin, which is true in certain ways, but don't overlook the bigger picture. You know, there's more than you can see with a bare eye. If you analyze for like 5 to 10 minutes with the right tools, you can basically identify crazy strategies to scale later on, and that's what we are doing and what we're helping by.
So by that, you mean who to target more efficiently?
For example, who to target, who was there already before, identifying customers who came, splitting up customers into new customers, which come the first time to you, like existing customers, like these are people who are repeatedly buying from you. And this is stuff which is happening there. Yeah.
And are you basically making Facebook and these other ad platforms as efficient as they were pre the iOS updates a few years back?
Of course, I cannot guarantee. But what we are doing, what we're trying to do, we're giving you, first of all, better data. Like, even back then, you had just like a limited set amount of data. The reason it worked better back in the days was mostly because you had like less competition. Yeah, you had less competition in your niche, you had less competition in bidding on ads and stuff like that, because you have a bidding-based system as well in Google as in Meta, for example, and every other ad platform is working like that. But what we are doing is, we are not only bring you back to this like 2016 like environment, because we cannot influence the environment, but we can improve your chances right now to perform better. So we can capture more data, having this certain edge in front of your competitors to succeed easier. And this is what makes you performing better than the rest of the market.
Okay. And you said there kind of, there's a certain level where you should be at before you start to think of using a tool like OneTrack. What would you say for an ecom brand? What should that level be before they start to take this seriously?
Yeah, usually, to be honest, like it's from an ecom brand perspective, they should basically like spend at least like 30 to 35K per month overall digital advertising. Like, for example, 50% on Facebook, 50% on Google, or 100% Facebook, 100% Google. Doesn't matter like how the split is. But I say at least like 30K per month, 35K per month you should do like in ad spend, because that's like depending also a little bit on the region. US shops are different than European shops and stuff like that, because the markets are different. Markets are bigger, smaller, and this is basically like a rule of thumb which you can use and say, okay, if I'm making 30, 35K, I should basically think about like getting a proper data and ad tracking solution, because ad tracking is like the result coming out of the data in the end. And most people only look at the tracking, but most tracking tools are not like recognizing the data. So this is what you should do, in my opinion.
Okay. And then what platforms do you work with? So you mentioned there kind of Meta, Google. Are there other ones?
We're basically working with all the big platforms, like everything you need: Taboola, Outbrain, LinkedIn, Meta, Google, TikTok, Pinterest, stuff like that. Yeah. So there's basically no limits on that one.
Okay. And then in terms of geographies, are there differences between kind of the US, Europe, and so on?
In general, they're quite different markets. They work differently. Stuff which usually works in the US is not working too much in Germany in like an advertising marketing times of angle. Product-wise, it can of course work because humans are 80% basically same worldwide. Like they have the same needs in the Western world and stuff like that. You have to have like a grouping. You have to know who's your customer, who's having a problem, and stuff like this. But if your product is working in the market, it's usually just like adjusting the creatives, the message which you're sending out, and this can help a lot, especially in ecom. But the markets are quite different. For example, US market is much bigger, so the media buying skills, in my opinion, to scale in the US market are not as crazily high standard which they need to be, like for example in Europe, because you have a very dense market, you have a very language driven market, you have a lot of different languages. In the American market, you have basically, if you compare it right to Germany, you have like 4 times the size of a German market there, which use the same currency, has the same kind of law area, like legal status. You have like the same shipping, you have the same like mindset and spirit. So this is a little bit easier to sell in scaling terms. Of course, there are then more challenges probably in the supply chain, because you need to source product faster and stuff like that. But the markets are quite different and the same at the same time. But you have to have the skill to analyze it.
And are there differences in kind of data collection and pushback for you guys as at OneTrack between different geographies?
Not as much as I would think, like to highlight it, to be honest. I think in Europe there's less data points than the 14 mentioned before. I think 14 at the moment in Meta in US, and now in Germany I think at the moment it's 11 or 12. Because of GDPR and certain restrictions of the European Union and stuff like this. But like honestly, it's not worth the highlight.
Okay, so it's not a drastic difference, it's like 1 or 2
No,
months.
In the end it's like technology solution. It's working. Like if the technology is working, you have your end result, you know? So it's not like market related.
Okay. And what would you say to brands that are maybe looking at kind of you guys, OneTrack, and other solutions in the market? Why would you say, they should work with you?
First of all, I always say, like, I challenge the people to try it. Like if they're having the right ad spend, if they're in the right point to scale, I always say, let's try it, find it out. We are never shying back from a competition to anybody else, or at least to comparison with other solutions. We are not comparing us with any other solutions, because what we have built in our mind is like very different to what the market has offered. Otherwise, we would not have built it and in the first place. And what we are doing is like, we are trying to unify the data. Like we are trying to bring stuff better, because if you try to do ad tracking, you have to basically follow 3 steps. First of all, you have to have like a collection mechanism, which has to collect the data in the most amount, in the best quality, to say it like this. Yeah. So collection is the first step. The second step you should have as a platform is basically you should have a transform process. Sounds very complicated. It's easy, to be honest. Yeah. But you have to check the data. Is the data correct? Then in the second step, add data if needed, then reject data if the data, for example, is wrong, or like a VPN is, for example, an IP address or stuff like that. You have to then also structure the data, because data which is not structured has basically a zero value for you. So what you have to do is like you have to structure data to analyze it, which is then bring it together in a customer profile. I have to know like, oh, this is first name Jordan, last name Dowdy. He's like basically coming from a TikTok ad 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago from a Google ad. Now he basically did an add to cart and purchased from a Google ad, for example. And then you have like to see all of these steps, because in the first two, we didn't have a name. We didn't have a person. We have to bring this together, all together into one profile. And when we have this profile, then we have to post it back. And postback is the third step, so that you give basically the databases to Facebook, to Google, to TikTok, and all the other platforms, to like optimize perfectly on it. And this is what we are doing.
Okay.
And if you don't have these three steps, you can basically not guarantee an end result for the customer, tracking terms, analytic terms, and attribution wise. And that's why we unified all of these: collection, transform, postback for eCom customers and lead generate customers of ours.
Can you track someone across multiple different devices?
Yes, that's in general possible. It depends, of course, of the jurisdiction. Where you are, and of course of data protection laws and stuff like this. But in general, it's possible to track people over devices. There's certain measures to do it. You can mostly only collect data in certain instances. People are popping up, for example, like on a Sunday evening on the couch on the iPad. They saw your Facebook ad, they click on it. Then on the Monday morning, they're sitting maybe like in the public transport and checking again and go through it and like, oh, now they have a different network and a different device, so they're popping up there. And what you have to know about tracking will never be 100% business. Yep. If somebody's like telling you, oh, we are 100% tracking, I'm always very careful with words like that, especially as a German, because we try to be very precise, in this case. And what we are trying to do is like, we try to give the people what's maximally possible. And usually what is possible is like a 85 to 95% tracking accuracy. So you can really see and where the people came from, what did they do, and how did they convert in the end. And this is very important to understand, because like 100% tracking, like you said, you have different networks, you have different devices and stuff. And over device tracking and over network tracking, like in different networks, different devices, is never 100%. Because you have hundreds and if not thousands of devices, thousands of networks, changes in certain areas. They jump from an Instagram browser to a Safari browser, change the network, change the device from an iPad to a laptop, or from a laptop to an iPhone. And all of this to bring it together will always lose some data in a certain way. You will always have kind of called friction. Okay. So now data friction. And what we try to do is, of course, minimize the data friction. And we can actually track people over devices, but of course there will be friction. We are like at a 65 to 75% accuracy over device, over network tracking.
Okay. So does that mean in layman's terms that kind of 65, 75% of all traffic you can track and map out into, let's say, 10 or 11 data points per pass?
Yeah, of all like, let's say, device network change traffic. But you have to think of something like the rest of the solutions on the market. They're not tracking it at all. They're on zero. So you're losing a lot of traffic there. And people usually think also like, oh, we have UTMs, we have this, we have that. We even make memes about UTMs and Excel sheets in the company, because UTMs are good for certain stuff. The problem is with UTMs, you always see just one touch point. And usually the touch point is overwritten if you have a new touch point. And people always assume, as soon as they see like 2 touch points or 3 touch points, that this is the whole journey. That's the whole truth they are seeing. But we know experience-wise that you can see basically in some eCom cases up to like 14, 15 touch points, which is absolutely crazy. And people see 3 of them. And it's like 20%, which is super low, to be honest.
So what would you say to a brand owner then? Because how then are they supposed to think about their marketing if there's just so many touch points?
First of all, what I see with most of the brand owners, they shy away from analytics, because sometimes they're burned from analytics solutions and they didn't learn how to analyze it properly, because most of the people, they're focusing on supply chain, which is needed and stuff like that, building the online shop, conversion rate optimization in the online shop, and then a little bit media buying. Okay, look at your ROAS, that's it. But the problem with this is there is so much more to analytics than you can basically expect. Yeah. And as Sun Tzu said, the war is basically won before it even started. So before you try to optimize anything in execution, or execute on what you're trying to do, sit down and think a little bit. Like, try to make yourself a picture of the customer. What is the customer really trying to do? Like, this is super important, because you will miss out certain breadcrumbs. They're leaving, for example, in the attribution solution, we are giving like a timeline of the customer journey where you can see exactly, even if they just visited the site, didn't leave a lead, didn't leave a purchase, didn't do an add to cart, they just popped out on the site and left. We can reconstruct that customer back, and you can see, oh, there's meta ads in the beginning for like 2 or 3 times where the people just come on the site and leave again. Oh, and in the end, Google is converting it. Yes, because Google also got fed the data, for example, and now they're converting over Google because probably they're searching, yeah, and then Google is like the place to search for people, and then they see your Google ad, and then they convert over to Google ad, and he's like, okay, then I can turn off Meta because it's wasted money. Yeah, and like 3-4 weeks later, you're like, oh, my Google ads are not converting anymore. Yeah, because you didn't make these first touch points. You're missing that. And as a brand owner, I would recommend for everybody to sit down just a little bit, yeah, and analyze stuff. Like, get to the ground of things. And it does not take like hours and hours, and people have this school-like thought you have to analyze a lot of stuff and reports. It's all bullshit. Sit down, look at the data, have the data structured, and then, oh, okay, I see this and this, and then act up on it.
Okay.
Because, like I said, the war is won before it started.
Okay. But how specifically should you kind of sit down and look at that data? Like, what is the strategy there?
It depends what kind of solutions you're using. First of all, you have to make sure that your data you're looking at is the right data. Because the only thing that is worse than have no tracking and no correct attribution is basically having the wrong attribution and the wrong data in front of you. And that's why, for example, we are at OneTrack. What we are trying to do is like we're giving the people all the necessary tools to investigate. People can go in and just check for themselves if we attributed the lead right. You can see where they're coming from. You can see what they're clicking on. You can see the whole customer journey broken down to the most narrow point what you can do. And we do this for every customer, for every page view, for every add to cart, for every initiate checkout, every purchase, everything. So the people do not have to trust us. So they can go inside, check for themselves, is what the software is telling me right, for example. It's a little bit more complicated when you go for like the classic terms like Excel sheets, UTM and stuff like that. And you cannot believe usually the ad platforms too much. Yeah, it's depending a little bit on how they're working with data. Like Google, for example, is usually working a little bit better with data than Meta does. But in general, usually you have an over or under attribution in the platform. So the data you're looking at is super skewed. And if it's skewed, you have to be very wary of which decisions you make in the end. And that's the reason you need the right tools to analyze it. You need, first of all, you need to see, okay, is the basis correct? Did I have the same amount of orders? Yes. Okay. Where did they come from? Google, Meta. Okay. Which campaigns? Okay, this and this. Are there big differences between, for example, the numbers Meta is showing me? Are they too high, too low? To compare, for example, what I see, for example, in OneTrack or stuff like that? Okay. Why is OneTrack showing only like 20% of what Meta is showing me? Because people tend then, oh, it's wrong. No. Then analyze. Take a look, and then be open-minded. That's the most important stuff. That your ideas of your customer's journey could be wrong. Because people have this predefined picture of their own customer journey, how the customer is buying from them. But what we find out in at least 50% of the cases, it's not true. That's not how the customer buys in the end. And when you fix that and put your breadcrumbs on the right stages in the customer journey, for example, people sometimes look at a blog in between. And usually there's like 3-4 blog articles which outperform all the other 100 blog articles you have. Then, okay, make more of these so they have a better understanding of the topic. After that is fixed, okay, they come in the first, before they read a blog, they come from TikTok. Okay, they come from TikTok Reels. Okay, interesting. So let's produce more short form content, like in form of video clips and stuff, to get cold audience in, then warm them up with the blog articles. And then as soon as when they went on the site, go and target him with meta ads and stuff like that. Okay. And this is the way, and people just try to force, we have paid. But there is so much more you can see, and even more that it's missed by the usually e-com owners.
Okay. So it's kind of zoom out, look at the journey that seems to convert the best, and then do more of each stage in that.
Yes.
That full stack.
Like, first of all, get your data right. Yeah. Make sure it's right, and then analyze on the data. And there's different tools you can do this with. We are one of them. Yeah. And you just like filter, look at it, look at certain products. You can structure, move stuff. There's like an organic process. We are, for example, teaching that in our academy, which is basically for free for every customer of us. So they can just go in, see what are winning strategies, how is it working, what did they do in the past. And we have case studies in there from people who scaled like from 100K to million K ad spend per month and stuff like this. So that the people just can see what they can take as value and then just implement with the software with a few clicks.
Okay. What would you say to kind of business owners that aren't at the spend level or at the level to kind of work with OneTrack, but they're interested in, you know, what you're saying, they think you're correct? Is there anything they can do kind of at the stage before?
Yes, of course. It's very important, first of all, if they have this thought that they want to analyze, it's first of all a right intention. Like, you have to appreciate that. It's like amazing that they want to do it, because usually people shy away from that. The thing what they can do is like maybe like work first of all with the standard tracking methods, integrate a conversion API, using the basics which are there, which are available for everybody, easy to use, and then focus on the basics of the business first. Like, do not lose yourself too much, because you not have too much data with like 20K, 10K of ad spend. You do not have like crazy amount of data, crazy amount of orders, but get yourself to a stable level of 20, 30K, for example, then fix the business, get your conversion rates optimized, get everything you need, like customer proof, like testimonials, videos, and stuff like that. On the page, there's other people who know much more about conversion rate optimization than me, for example. Like, get all the basics right. And if you have that, then start putting more ad spend.
Okay.
Like, do not overdo it, like try to force ad spend. Because if you pour water in a bucket with holes in it, it's not like getting better or high level of water in the bucket. You have to first plug the holes, then fill the water, and then think about the other bucket or truck to bring more water. You know?
Okay. I also just want to go back to something you said before about, you know, let's take two platforms. Meta is top of funnel. Google is converting at bottom of funnel. People or brand owners sometimes don't see that, and they'll just turn off the top of funnel because they think it's not converting. What would you say to people like that don't understand kind of what they're doing?
Get help. 100%. Yeah. There's so much good free stuff online. You don't have to buy this crazy expensive eCom coaching or stuff like that. Yeah. There's good ones out there which are worth the money 100%. But like, you do not need to pay another person basically crazy coaching amounts. It's usually better spent in ad spend and try and test stuff with your own mind and your own time. The problem is most of them in the beginning, if they're not like super focused on business, they're kind of lazy. Yeah. And if you're lazy in business, it usually never works out properly for you. So what I would recommend is like, for them, like, if you're really serious about making money and know that your online shop, your product is right, your market fit is right, you know, you have your shop in place, you have it a little bit optimized and stuff like that, then get a person, like maybe pay them for like a one-on-one and offer them sometimes like just invite them to dinner and just ask them the questions you want to ask, and help them and get introduced to that. For example, we have people who like scaled crazily with OneTrack, and they're very happy to share their experiences. So what we do is like, if somebody like in our customer success team finds out that a customer has a certain problem or like is at a certain point and cannot scale anymore, what we do, we just hook him up with people who were at this point before, and then just like, hey, can you make half an hour, 45 minutes, just like a call with them, and just like they talk to each other, and usually it's super valuable because like the people, we know the numbers, so they cannot bullshit us. So we know exactly, okay, this is a marketer who's able to perform. This is like not working what the other guy says. So we usually give the top guys who were at this point before, make a consulting session with the client. This is usually for free. They just do it like, they just want to do it, you know. They give back because they have been helped before. And then they do the call. And sometimes, not all the times, like they say, oh, we need more calls and stuff like that. Are you open to like give us a coaching for X amount of money, which is usually way cheaper than any other online coaching. And then they just sit down, analyze, and it's much more individual. And they spend the time, give back. There's a little bit of like exchange in business, and this is super good.
Okay. And how do you think about top of funnel versus bottom of funnel? Maybe allocation or spend?
It's very hard to say, depending crazily on product. It's also depending crazily on the market which you try to target. There are certain people you can figure out, like, where you basically need no ad spend top of funnel, but need to retarget a lot. Yeah. Then there's stuff which is not working organically at all. So you have to basically like do all the paid traffic and then convert with emails in the back end. And this is something you have to find out. It's like super product specific in my opinion.
It's product dependent based on kind of price point, demographic, and factors like that.
Price point, demographics, like also geolocations, time zones. It depends. You cannot make a general claim about that.
Okay. And how do you think from an advertising perspective about kind of branding versus direct response?
Usually direct response is usually in the beginning good to figure out if your product is working and if you have like a functioning business. And branding is coming at a certain point, usually between, my opinion, 50 to 100K ad spend.
Monthly.
Like monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should put it like maybe get another brand off the ground or like brand the product yourself and stuff like that. If it makes sense, you know, if it's like a product you can run for longer, if you can build a product ecosystem around, then I would spend the money. Specifically, sometimes it's good to get just your market name out in a certain space. For example, if you have like a highly competitive market and it's hard to go inside, it's very good that you make something different and brand yourself different first, and then retarget at people who, for example, just watched your branding ads and stuff like this. The stuff what we are doing is like we can usually not generalize stuff because we're in the analyzing business, you know, we are analytical. And I'm really shying away of analyzing stuff because when you look at the data, in most of the cases, it's crazy different than what you think.
Yeah.
And this is this thing like branding versus exactly conversion based. You will always need conversion based ads for sure, but in certain markets it makes more sense to have branding based ads.
Okay, and as you scale, you need kind of more, or you shift focus more towards the branding side as well, but you should always keep the direct response stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. You cannot make money with branded campaigns. Like this is usually not working unless you have a crazy viral product. We have people who sell over TikTok shops live like crazy.
Yeah.
Because everybody's shitting on TikTok shop. I see the revenues, they are like from another world. Yeah. But they're doing it like in a super organic way, super smart, and they do it organically. Also possible. Yeah. It's just a different way of doing strategy. Stuff. Yeah. And then they have paid ads in the back end. You know? And like I said, depending on the product, if you have a good organically like scaling product, okay, scale organically. Do not shy back also from influencers and stuff. They usually do a good job if you identify them right. And there's certain ways to scale.
Okay. Taking the kind of direct response angle, and you know, if a brand wants to start off and kind of focus on that, what type of ads or content works super well? So I'm assuming kind of like us versus them type stuff to capture demand that's already in market, or what would you say there?
Everything which gives an emotional response, basically.
Okay.
The us versus them is like a classic emotional response because you make an instant comparison. You have to be a little bit careful because it's not like the ad platforms do not like to see it too much. Then, for example, like try to get like an emotional response out of the product buyer. For example, like a wow effect. If you have a hair product or a hair gadget, show before, after. Show a person who's using it, you know? And like in a crazy way with a good energy. So that you have this emotional element within. Because what most people in eCom forget is like, in the end, humans are usually making spontaneous decisions, and this is done by emotions. And this emotional element is usually missing. They don't try too much. They can do much more crazy ads, you know, do something which stays in the mind, for example.
Can you just explain that a bit more? What do you mean when you say getting an emotion across?
Yes, like for example, if you sit in front of an ad and it's like, hey, buy this, for example, hair dryer, and this is so good, it costs half of the price which it cost last week. Yeah, nobody will buy it. Take the old hair dryer, smash it. Yeah, take the other one, show the person with a glowing hairstyle, because this is what every, for example, woman or man wants. Like, know your customer. And then like present it in a way and say, okay, here's also a discount if you act the next 24 minutes. Like super different.
Okay.
Same message, same product, super different creative aspect, you know? but like from the core message, from the content, but the reframing of the message, for example, like in an emotional way, and to like hook them immediately, crazy good.
Okay. And how important is the offer in that kind of process?
Offer is usually super important in every business. It doesn't matter if it's lead generation or e-commerce, to be honest. If the product or the offer is not working, you can throw money on it and it will still not work maybe a little bit, but not on a crazy scale. So the offer, in my opinion, is a very, very underestimated leverage usually people have. And there's different offers you have to test, in my opinion. Like, offers is always a testing question. It's not like a thing like, oh, this is working, this is not working, or stuff like this. Just test it.
Yeah.
Just feel it. Sometimes if you have a lot of experience, you can already tell this will probably work, this will probably not work, and stuff like that. But in the end, test.
Okay. And are you kind of hooking or leading with the offer, or are you leading with the kind of emotion?
Usually emotion, because also what the offer creates in the end, if the offer is crazy good, it like creates, for example, a fear of missing out. So it's hooking them. So I would say it's always the emotion, and of course the price point has to fit like the target audience, and all the basic frameworks have to fit. Yeah. And if they are fitting, they are buying.
Okay. So kind of emotion first, offer on the back end once someone's hooked in. I want to talk about you now and your kind of backstory. So this is a very niche SaaS or product to be creating, right, with OneTrack. How did you end up in kind of that spot?
Honestly, we don't see us in a niche, to be honest. There's a big market for data analytics software, which is like going over several branches, over several countries worldwide. And because it's software, it's like worldwide applicable. So this is the market we're looking at, and we are not seeing us like as a certain small niche area where we focus, for example, on e-commerce or lead generation, because there are not so many clients in the size of how we need them, to put it that way. So what we are trying to focus on, like, we always wanted to help ourselves in the first place, by creating a software which is really working. Because before we did like an agency and we had a revenue share with clients and stuff like that, and we did like this boutique agency stuff before it was cool.
What stuff were you doing? What services?
Like, we basically run the ads, did the creatives, and like help people scaling, of course, reshaping the offers and stuff like that. This is but a long time ago, in the dark days, 6-7 years ago. And the problem was the rev share was always like, when we did a rev share, was always wrong. And like the client, this is not from you, this is not from you. And like, we're like, okay, we want to track it. And we tried to track it, and like, it didn't work out. And in the end, we said, okay, let's try it ourselves. And then we started to figure out a solution. And now we're at iteration 20 of the solution, probably, maybe 18, maybe 19, I don't know, to be honest. And out of this grew. This is where it came from. And we never set out our minds like to like do a software or stuff like that. We always wanted to help. We always want to have like an easy way to analyze data in the most precise way. And so we started. And this is the end solution. And we came up with this process. We identified the process that you need to collect, transform, and post back the data. Then we developed all the elements, and then we started like this.
Okay. And do you have a technical coding background?
Myself, I have a little bit of technical background, but I was in a lucky position that, so as well as my co-founder, as well as my brother, much smarter people than I am. So I could basically hire them for free, and start with them the business. And they are doing all the technical stuff in the background. I'm giving the ideas. I'm giving like the customer feedback, because usually our nerds are having a good time coding, but not a good time speaking to other people. Yeah. So it's a classic case. No, and this is how we started. We are always listening to the customer. Like, we are looking at what do they need, what does really make sense. For example, sometimes people try to overanalyze, and we're like, okay, what we know from experience, you need to stop there. Yeah. This is enough. Do the action on this data and go. You will make crazy amount of money if you do that. And this is basically how we started.
Okay. And were you kind of still running the agency at this point, or did you just go all in on the software?
No, we went all in. Like, of course, there was like a transition period in between where we switched a little bit, because like, of course, you start a new business. We start from zero, like every other business. And that's why we like just like cut the agency step by step down and like increased the SaaS stuff.
Okay, so there was kind of an overlap initially.
Yeah, like 6 months around.
Okay. And in terms of funding, Was there a lot of capital that you needed to put into the kind of software business initially?
Depends what a lot of capital is for you.
What are we talking here? Like 7 figures plus or?
Yeah, back in the days, we to get it properly kicked off to get an MVP. By the way, MVP is mostly wrong defined from people.
In what way?
People usually say the MVP is the most viable product. Like it's a product which has the least amount of features still working for the customer. Yeah. But for me, an MVP is the product which the customer buys in the end with the least amount of features. Okay. Because it's about the buying aspect, because if they're not buying, you don't have a customer in the end. And we built the MVP with 7 figures, which we did from the agency. We bootstrapped everything.
Wow.
And went from there on. We got a lot of requests to like put an investment from friends, from family, from business partners and stuff like that. But we just said, let's do it our way and let's keep it that way. And so far we're doing quite okay.
Okay, so it's kind of founder-owned and bootstrapped, and you don't plan on taking outside capital?
I cannot speak for the second one like directly at the moment.
Maybe
later it can make sense depending on the surroundings, but it's a fully founder-owned bootstrap company. We are all running the company. We're now like almost 40 people. Okay, there's a couple of freelancers inside, plus minus, but like we are focusing to really deliver the value and build the company how we would like to build it. Okay. And there's no outside person putting the finger in except the customers and who are saying like, hey, we need this, we need that. Then we analyze it, then we try to make it good, we make it easy, and then we implement it for the software. And this is how we grew in the last years.
Okay. And I know a lot of people that building software companies have kind of an outsourced development team. Do you do that, or do you keep it in-house?
Yeah, if you want to make no money and have shitty software, it's probably like the way to go, especially if you build a complex software. Yeah, to be a little bit less dramatic about it. But to be honest, if you try to outsource software and you don't know what you're doing, we did the same mistake. Okay. Like I'm not free of this mistake. We did it in the beginning, and this was the reason I took my brother with me, because he's like super deep in tech and like he's like one of the smartest people I know. So what we had is like we were wasting probably like low 6 figures, middle 6 figures in external software stuff, and then we figured out it's not working at all. It's not like the speed we want to do, and then we said, okay, we have to do it internally. And then we internalized basically all of the software development, and this is how it stayed. Okay. And I cannot recommend it, especially if you build complex softwares like data analytics softwares and stuff like that. You cannot like plug and play together with Zapier and Make. You know, like you have to probably know what you're doing, and you have to build architecture for it, and you have to know exactly, okay, what happens if the amount of data is exceeding a crazy number. For us, for example, on Black Friday, like there were seconds, like in the evening of Black Friday, where we took like 10, 15,000 events per second. Wow. Like, and this is like a lot of data which is coming in for our size of company. For Facebook, it's nothing. Yeah. But the infrastructure has to hold it. It has to work and stuff like that. And you cannot do this if people are not committed in developing this. And we are only usually relying on like high qualified German software engineers. Yeah. We have also like, of course, some foreigners working with us, but mostly Germans, and they all like communicate together and are like a little bit crazy together. Yeah. Our company culture is quite unique, I can tell you. But it's a very funny place to be. We have almost no fluctuation in people. They stay with us for a very long time. And I would always say, get yourself first a little bit of technical skill that you sell, that you can judge if it's good what the product from external is delivered, because otherwise there's the chance that you get like taken advantage of.
Okay. What does the business look like from a structural perspective in terms of like different teams within it? Obviously, you've got the kind of technical side. What else do you have?
Of course, you have sales, you have marketing, which is basically one department. Sales and marketing, you have the tech part, which is there. You have a little bit of back office, but it's only like 2-3 people who are like doing the back office stuff. And you have like customer success, which is communicating with the customer, coordinating everything.
How much focus do you put on that?
To be honest, we put a lot of focus on customer success, especially on management and key accounting. I know you're laughing about it because you probably work with a lot of other software companies who don't do this. Yeah. And they try to do everything with a chatbot and get in. The thing is, why not investing in customer support? Because the customers will naturally come up with questions. And yes, you can maybe standardize them, but like give them at least the opportunity to quickly speak to somebody. even if it's a chat, like put a live person there who has some knowledge, and then answer it, and even give them calls or speak to your customers. Like this is for us very different because like we are not like in a crazy amount of customers. Like we're not talking 10,000s and thousands of customers as a software, because we have a different service approach. We're B2B software, which is quite different. But we want to have the customer right next to us. So if he has a question, he can ask it. If he needs help, we will provide it, And this is super important in my opinion because the other people are missing out on a lot of details if you don't talk to the customer and like don't see where the problems are, and you miss a lot of good improvements you can make for your own business and your own software and like make it easier for all customers if you don't talk to them and if you don't reach out the helping hand.
Okay. And what does your onboarding process look like? Because I'm assuming, let's say people are starting this from scratch on the tracking side. That's when a lot of questions arise, right?
Yeah, usually the onboarding process is quite easy. You decide to work with us. What we are doing then is like sending you out like forms, like very standardized. We have done this process hundreds and hundreds of times, so it's quite refined. So you fill it out. You have already like an open communication channel with us so that you can ask questions in case you want to like clarify something in the forms and stuff like that. So we immediately after the sales, we give the communication to the key accounters. So like the customer success managers, depending who's in charge. Yeah.
Did the customer get assigned like one person to speak to?
Yes, we are not having like a support center. You always have like, for example, Jordan, and you talk to Jordan, and Jordan knows your funnel. Jordan knows your e-commerce store. He knows what you are doing, so you don't have to explain everything from zero every time you talk to them, and they can quickly help usually because they know it. And we have different people who are doing this job, and they do it quite well because they're quite well educated. So in communication as well as also in technical parts of the business, so they can help quite a lot. They can answer basically 98% of all the inquiries coming in. For like 2%, the technical team has to provide input or like somebody from a media buying side because like a super specific question. But this is like done in less than 24 hours. And the people start with us. They fill out the form. We go on a call with them. It's an onboarding call. It takes like 20 minutes. Like just to clarify details, put a timeline in. Timeline is usually like around 7 days to be implemented if you're an online shop for Shopify, for example, and stuff like that. We implement everything. You receive updates while we implement, so you know exactly what is the status. You can, of course, as I said before, ask questions during that. Then we make like a connection call. We connect everything together. Yeah, and then everything is live. And from that point on, we're getting data. The ad platforms are getting data. You're having the data in the dashboards, and then you can work from there.
Okay. What's that kind of ramp up time initially?
Like 7 days.
Okay, so very quick.
Yeah, super quick.
Okay.
Like especially for e-commerce businesses, if you have like a crazy amount of funnels or crazy amount of like e-com stores, it could be a little bit longer, but usually it's like 7 days. And of course, German deadlines are not broken.
On that ongoing basis, what does that customer success touch points look like after someone's kind of up and running? How often do they talk to you, and what kind of work do you guys have to do on an ongoing basis once everything's set up?
There's a lot of work in the backend because, of course, we develop the software more. Yeah, but from customer success perspective, we're usually checking in every week, 2 weeks with the people if they don't have questions. Usually, if people have questions, we speak immediately to them. We do not let them wait for something, and they can just book themselves a call if they need to. They can speak to us. They can come up with like, oh, I see this in the data. Is this correct? And stuff like this. Yeah. All the questions which are coming up can be answered, but we have to be honest. Like the customers are usually quite well using the software automatically because it's quite easy to do. So there's not so many questions usually around the product. Usually it's more like a checking in. Hey, is everything okay? Hey, do you plan anything? Especially for like big launches or like big days like Black Friday, we are usually always taking like in the information from the customers, so we know what we have to expect, and then we're helping them where we can.
Okay. Outside of kind of customer success and the other teams you talked about, are there other parts of the business?
Yeah, a little bit back-end, of course. Okay. But that's basically it, yeah.
Okay. Touching on the kind of sales and marketing side then, I want to start with, initially how you guys got started, and then over time, how has that sales and marketing piece evolved for you?
Yeah, like we just spoke before, we had like an agency before. So what we did is like we transformed all our agency customers to our OneTrack customers step by step. And since we had a very good relationship with them, like I think all of them back in the days bought our initial software product, which I have to say thank you for this because it was really horrible back in the days. It's not horrible anymore. And we're like going there. But the thing is, we had a good relationship. And so this is how it started. And we basically just grew by word of mouth. So people are seeing the results, people are using the software, and then other people are asking them, hey, how do you get these results? How do you work with that? What is this dashboard from? Looks interesting what they have there. And we're like, okay, this is the way to grow, and this is how it went from there on. So basically, we're like having a lot of word of mouth, like marketing. From the side, we just like recently started running ads because we always wanted to try it, but we grew like crazy from like 3 years ago just by word of mouth.
Okay, and that's testament to how good the product is, I'm assuming. Right?
Yeah, it's like more like networks. People search for solutions which are good, and they're used to shitty solutions. And if they find a good solution which is working, they're talking about it. It's like the free marketing. Some people call it the product-led growth, but I'm more sure it's like a shitty product-led growth from outside, because people have the need and you have to provide it, and we're capitalizing on that. And yeah, this is how it worked.
Okay, and do you want to do stuff beyond ads in the future to kind of ramp up growth?
There's different ways to grow. We're thinking about certain stuff, but actually, at the moment, the growth rate is fine for our stuff. We are growing at a sustainable rate. We do everything step by step, and then go on from there.
Okay, so it's kind of steady, stable growth is more what you're after. Keep improving the products rather than just rocket ship.
Yes, because at one point naturally you will rocket ship. It will just happen if you pull the right levers, it will come automatically. So we are not focusing too much like on getting crazy marketing there, crazy marketing that, because we know like if we pull the right levers, it will just explode at one point. And the thing is, for that, product has to be ready, infrastructure has to be ready, team has to be ready, and stuff like this. And this is what we're focusing on.
In terms of long-term vision, what's next for OneTrack? Like, what have you got planned?
Honestly, we have crazy stuff coming in the updates middle of the year. We, of course, looking at stuff like AI, which is coming in and getting more prevalent in every business and more obvious. We are getting much more into the aggregated data. So we want to like see people to have benchmarkings and like stuff that they can judge their performance well. So they have like a water stand, basically. You know, a water line where they are in the business so they can improve, or like, for example, find out where they get the most leverage from. So this is what we're trying to do. And usually we're updating the software basically like probably every quarter in a big update and every 3 to 4 weeks in a smaller update. So we're pushing quite hard to have like more for the people.
Is that new features?
These are new features. These are improvements in the UI. These are improvements in speed. So the usability from the software, and of course the easiness to use it, the ease of use, you would say in English, is what we are looking for.
Okay. If you were to kind of go back to the start now and start of the OneTrack journey, what would you do differently?
Probably start internally with developers and that have more technical knowledge, because this saves a lot of starting capital. In the beginning. I would say build things that you are faster, because you have to break a lot of things. You know, you have to test a lot of stuff, and we're changing major system. We changed major systems in the backend, for example, many times. Like 2 or 3 times, but it's for major changes like crazy in software to do that. Figure out what we really need, and after we had this done, we gained a lot of momentum and speed. So this is what you need basically to get escape velocity.
Okay. And obviously you guys have kind of taken the bootstrapped route. What would you say to a founder that's kind of evaluating taking on funding at the start of the journey versus going the bootstrap path?
It's depending what you try to found. If you like have a business which has to get a certain market size pretty fast, or like take a lot of market percentage pretty fast, I would say, okay, probably you need outside capital and you need to look for the right people to work with, because probably network is more important than net worth in this kind, like in what size of check you're getting written. Then it depends like of technical complexity and stuff like that. Most of the people dream about getting outside finance, but the big VC firms, they will only look at certain products in certain ways. And people are dreaming about getting investment, and it's super like, how to say it, surreal that they ever will get funding or stuff like this if you build a 16th ChatGPT wrapper or stuff like that. quite boring, by the way. There's much more interesting stuff you can do. And another thing is, you have to see what kind of person are you. Do you want to have somebody you could speak to? Yeah, VCs have also like super good networks. Usually they have a good amount of people which you can talk to. And do you need that? Is that the knowledge you need? Or is it something you want to build on your own with your own network? And this is just stuff you have to evaluate. There's certain routes for certain ideas.
Okay. And why did you then take that kind of bootstrapped route? Why did you go the opposite path?
First of all, we had the means to do it. So I said, okay, let's try it. And I didn't want to get outside money for my first software because you will have a lot of fuck ups, and on the way it makes it much more problematic if you have like the wrong partner or a partner at all sometimes. Informs from like decision making, the goals of the decision making, like what kind of measurement do you need? Do you look at the money stage, or do you look at the customer, or do you look at both? There's certain preference for certain people. And since we had the means, I said, okay, let's try it like this first of all and see how far we can throw the ball down the field. And that's why we just hit it and like went from there. And in general, I would never say no to any path. You always have to analyze and see what people are doing. And that's why I say, okay, we can maybe take capital in the future. Maybe we will not. Yeah. There's certain routes where it makes sense, certain routes where it don't make sense. And this is basically, in the end, a personal and individual decision.
Okay. Can you talk about kind of hiring? And I guess there's two questions here. One is that initial kind of team that you started with internally. What are the key roles that you needed? And then how has that kind of hiring pattern evolved over time?
First of all, I would not think so much in roles. I would much more think in product and what need to be built in the beginning, because if you don't have a product, you can't sell anything, which is also not true. You can sell a product before you have it, but you have to know which product to build. So this is a way to go. What you also have to do is, like, in my opinion, like, get this product out first. There's no roles, there's no people. It just has to be done.
Yeah.
So, and after you had this and you grow, of course, you add more and more people to it. Of course, if you build a software, a technical person is usually good. But if you also have a technical person, you also have to have somebody who's speaking to the customers, listening to the market, having also the big picture like in the head, because you can get lost in feature development so easily with a snap. And you go into the wrong direction. And if you go into the wrong direction with your development, it's quite expensive and costs you a lot of time. And you have to figure that out, how to manage that, how to spot the right ideas and to execute the right ideas. And this is more a thing than hiring. In the beginning, you have to probably hire more general people who are like good in many things, and then usually you narrow down and get more specific later on. But I can tell from our team, honestly, we basically have just 8 players. Like, they're really smart. They have a really sometimes people from the outside would say toxic culture. Because that's the unique culture we have. But we are having like a family culture. We have almost no fluctuation. Everybody's there. We're working together. They're shitting on each other every day. They hate to work with dumb people. It's like they don't take shit. And if somebody is coming in there and not fitting and not like performing on the level they would expect it, they will tell them. And like, this is kind of a interesting culture I have never seen, to be honest, like on the outside. And we built it kind of by accident, to be honest, and also by just being us. And this is how it works. And I think it's working for every company differently. And people who try to generalize, for example, like advice and stuff like that, I would always be careful. You can always transfer some kind of knowledge from, for example, like sports or high performance athletes to business, because there is always certain truth on a base layer or something down there. But in the specifics, you have to be really, really, really careful what you are doing, because sometimes advice can be totally wrong, which is for the other person totally right.
When you're hiring a specialist now, how do you find and vet for that kind of A-player standard?
It's very easy. You just ask your A-players, because they basically just chill with people who they respect. And if you want to have good people, talk to good people. Yeah. And if you want to hire good people, ask your good people who they know who would fit a job role. And this worked very well for us, to be honest. Of course, we fitted some certain roles from externally and which are not so important. But the major roles, we always ask the people, hey, do you know somebody who can do this?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I know this guy. He was like the valedictorian of his class, like 6 years ago, and he's working now for this bank and he's not so happy. Okay, come.
Yeah.
Let's speak to him. And then we will check them. And yeah, this is basically the way.
Okay. And do you hire kind of globally, or is it just kind of German?
Usually we hire globally. Like we look at it's a merit-based system. You know, people have to perform. We have some certain checks in place we're working with, but we hire globally. We want to have global talent. We welcome everybody in the team. Yeah. The only thing is like it's a merit-based system, so you have to be like performing on the level of the others. You have to see you're working with people who can easily work like on high positions in big companies, or like who are very smart, or who are like a minimum percentage of, for example, intelligence or analytical skills, like probably in the world. So if you feel ready for that, feel free and challenge us and come to us. But in general, like, as it turned out, because we probably hired over network, we have a lot of Germans, but we also have different people. Like we have people from Brazil, we have people from Russia, also working with us, and this is because they have been the best. To be honest, that's why we talk to them.
That makes sense. I want to talk now about Fabian outside of OneTrack. What else are you doing or involved in, and what do you like to do outside of work?
Honestly, like my main focus is, of course, my business. I'm singly focused on OneTrack and not interested a little bit more in the left and righties of things. There's certain interesting stuff. I follow, of course, like history, like political stuff, movements, to like example, like analyze the zeitgeist, I would say. Because it's quite interesting to see how patterns rhyme, things are moving and stuff like this.
Okay. And you've been in Dubai for 6 years?
I mean, I've fulfilled already 5 years, and I'm in my 6th year right now.
Okay.
I left Germany shortly before Corona, like COVID happened, which was turning out, looking back, like probably one of the best decisions I did. But honestly, it was also luck, because it was basically, I was in a point in my life where I just said, okay, I always wanted to live outside a European country for like a certain amount of time. And I was like going to 30, and I was like, if I don't go now and then have family and children, I will probably never leave.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, okay, let's do it right now. And then I decided on it, and we don't have to kid each other. Like we came here because of taxes. We came here because of the weather.
Did you look at any other places, or did you live in other places?
Yes, I looked at a lot of other places. And of course, as a proper German, I made my list of pros and cons. Yeah. And then I made my decision metrics. Yeah. And in the end, it was Dubai.
Okay. So Dubai was just the one spot that you ended up going to?
Yes.
Okay. And what would you say about the zeitgeist of Dubai?
Zeitgeist of Dubai is developing at a pace nobody can predict and nobody could predict years ago. Dubai was very different 5 years ago, and it will be different in 5 years ago again, and it's hard to predict how it will develop, probably in a good way, to speak in probabilities. Dubai is like growing like crazy, while usually other places are like decreasing.
Especially Europe, right?
Yeah, it's not as hard, but if you look at Germany, the numbers, we have the third year of zero GDP growth as the fourth biggest economic power in the world, which is horrible, to be honest, especially with the capital infrastructure we have and the talent we have in the country. But Dubai is different. Dubai is smaller. We are talking about a way more dense place. People come here because they don't like the policies. It's like the honeypot for rich and famous people. Yeah. And the thing is, it has, like I said, certain benefits and also certain problems. The thing is, the deal for Dubai is crazy good. I'm a big fan of how the country is led. People usually in Western worlds like shit on this style of leadership and say it's bad. It's like the leadership is very good, and the leadership, yes. It's a aristocracy, basically. I think that's the English word for it.
Yeah.
And you have like a good family in charge, as well of the country as of Dubai, because people usually confuse the country with Dubai, the Emirate. And what they are doing is like they have fast decisions. They make database decisions. They did it also during COVID back in the days. And the stuff is not only with this, you see this in every rule. You can like, how to say it, like review every service in your app after you did it. And if you are in the bottom of your performance, they will change, for example, the whole government in this sector and just replace them with new people and like to build them up new processes, new structures. And the decision speed and the quality of the decision, because they iterate a lot, is so much better than what we can see in the Western countries. And yes, there's probably less discourse on that. But if you have like good people in charge, it's quite valuable. The thing is, if you don't have good people in charge anymore, there could be problems. But I cannot see this here, to be honest. Like at the moment, like this is probably the most stable, the nicest place you can be at. There's certain amounts, like especially also for women. Yeah, they can go out at night, which was normal in Germany when I lived there and when I grew up. But at the moment, in certain big cities in Germany, you cannot go out at night, or you should not go out at night at least. And this is a very different way to lead a country. And every country has its right to lead it how it should be. And they do it in a very smart way here in Dubai.
Fabian, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For people that are interested in following up with OneTrack, where is the best place to find you and kind of talk through next steps?
Oh, it's super easy. You can just like visit us on our website. You can go to www.one-track.io. I hope you can write this down in the video description because nobody can think about this URL, I guess. Otherwise, you can also link my Instagram under it, or like the OneTrack Instagram. We are happy to talk to the people. Yeah, feel free if you have questions just to reach out to us. And anyways, if there's any information you need, probably the best way to get about it is watching my other podcast interviews and to check our website.
Okay, and will you guys walk them through like a demo?
Yes, we will just walk them through a demo. Like, first of all, we clarify the case, if we can help them, if it makes sense for them. And if it makes sense, of course, we will walk them through a demo, show them how everything works, and then hopefully happily welcome them as a customer.
Perfect. Okay, Fabian, thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a great time. Thank you, Jordan.
Scaling an ecom brand is hard. That's why we're on a mission to share as much info as we can to help make it easy. From weekly interviews with the biggest names in the space to case studies, brand breakdowns and tips and tricks, and much, much more. Subscribe so you don't miss out.